Okay, thanks everyone. I'm really sorry about those technical issues. Thank you for your patience and waiting around to hear me present medicine, nursing and health sciences to you today. As you'll see there on the screen, my name is Justin Burnell. So I'm the Student Recruitment Manager for International in the Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences at Monash University in Australia. I've probably now only got about 20 minutes to speak to you, so I'm going to fly through this. It's going to be a very quick presentation, mostly about medicine at Monash, and hopefully we'll have about 5 minutes at the end for any questions that you may have. You're welcome to put questions in the chat as we go, but I'm not going to be able to present and obviously read the questions at the same time. So just a little bit of housekeeping there. This is just statistics here. So if you're wondering what is it like to study healthcare in Australia, well, the future is very bright, as we can see. So in Australia, we've got a growing population. So the population's getting bigger. We've got an aging population. The population's getting older. We've got a growing middle class. As we've seen around the world, we've got a growing complexity of disease. So what does that mean? It means we need more graduates in Australia in healthcare. There's lots of jobs, and you can see the statistics there. They're Australian government statistics showing that there's lots of jobs in medicine and also other health science related fields that we offer degrees in as well. Look, if you are thinking, if you've decided that, yes, I do want to study healthcare, but then you'll be thinking, well, which uni do I study at in Australia? There's lots of different options. So what are some of the reasons? Why would you choose Monash Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences? Well, something that stands out to a lot of our prospective students is that we're the only university in the state of Victoria. So Melbourne is the capital city of Victoria to offer direct entry medicine. And we also do offer graduate entry medicine as well, but we're the only university that offers a direct entry, medicine program to students in high school. You can see there too, integrated interdisciplinary learning. So not only will you learn with other medical students, but because we have physio students, OT students, nurses, that's what it's like in the real life. So you actually get to learn, surrounded by other students in similar, areas of study. Clinical placements and partners. So, an advantage of Monash is that we've got this huge network of hospitals that we will place you into as part of your degree. So Monash Medical Centre is one of those, for example. The Alfred Hospital, two of the biggest, hospitals in Victoria. And then if you're, thinking about reputation and brand and taking your degree around the world, it's good to know that we're ranked very highly in medicine and anatomy and physiology in the Times Higher subject rankings. That's the world university ranking. So 36 in the world for medicine and 37 in the world for anatomy and physiology. Clinical placements, we're actually building a hospital on our campus. So not us, the Victorian government, that'll be completed at the end of 2022. So this is more opportunities for students to do clinical placements, especially if you're interested in the area of cardiac care. It'll be the Victorian Heart Hospital will be the leading heart hospital in Australia. There's some of our facilities. So this is the Biomedical Learning and Teaching building. So if you come to Monash and study at Clayton, as part of your degree, you'll spend a significant amount of time in this building. This is where you do your anatomy, your physiology, your microbiology, pharmacology. It's got 3D printed body parts for you to examine. It's got virtual reality, augmented reality. So it's a fantastic building. That's what it looks like from the outside. But from the inside, this is some of the space that you'll have at your, availability to learn and study with other students. All right, so let's talk about the course. The main course I wanted to talk to you about, in our faculty, we probably have about 12 or 13 different undergraduate programs to choose from. Things like physiotherapy, nursing, nutrition science. But I'm only probably going to focus on medicine today and biomedical science. So this is the direct entry medicine program I referred to earlier. Monash is the only university that offers direct entry medicine in the state of Victoria. What does that mean? It means if you're studying A-levels or IB, you can apply to enter this course based on your grades in those qualifications, high school qualifications, and you'll come in and study medicine from day one, and it takes you 5 years to complete. So it's actually a Bachelor of Medical Science and a Doctor of Medicine, which is an MD qualification when you graduate. So that's a lot different to other universities. Other universities will often make you study 3 years of pre-med or 3 years of science, 3 years of biomedical science. And then you would have to do maybe another 4 years if you can gain access to medicine after that. So that would be 7 years versus 5 years. So obviously the Monash advantage is that you become a doctor much more quickly. You get to enter the workforce or enter your profession much more quickly. It obviously, it doesn't cost you as much money because you're paying medicine for 5 years rather than paying for 7 years of international student fees. And you're studying what you want to study from day one. So you're not studying general science or general biomed, you're studying medicine. So the course is 5 years. The first 2 years are campus-based and the remaining 3 years are spent in the hospital system, doing your clinical rotations. What I would say is this course, you need to be aware it's only for high school students. So you cannot transfer into this course. We don't accept transfers from other universities, or you start another course and you transfer in. And you must apply within 2 years of finishing high school. So really you've got to finish high school, and it's only available to students that have finished high school within 2 years. Any students that have gone on to further tertiary study, they won't be eligible for this course. So there's 3 selection criteria. You will look at your year 12 or equivalent results. So for example, your A-levels. We'll look at the ISAT, and we shortlist for interviews, multiple minute interviews based on your ISAT result. So 3 criteria. So we don't have cutoff scores because we use those criteria and rank you for admission on those criteria relative to other applicants in the applicant pool. So it will really depend on how well you are score in all of those 3 criteria, not just one or the other. So we'll take a look at those in a bit more detail. For our Bachelor of Medical Science, Doctor of Medicine, the MD program that we've been talking about, we have 70 places for international students. We probably receive about 700 applications each year for international students. So that's not from Singapore, that's from all over the world. So yes, Singapore, there is a lot of applicants, but we also have applicants from, every continent around the world. So our medical program is quite diverse. We can only interview about 175. So of those 700, we only interview about 175. So that's about a ratio of 2.5. And as I said earlier, that's why you've got to have a very strong score in the ISAT to be selected or shortlisted for the interviews at Monash. In addition to the 70 places, we probably have about 250 or 240 domestic places. So you do study with a lot of domestic students as well within the course and do your placements and go through, that cohort experience with a lot of other students, not just international students. You heard me mention earlier that the selection criteria. So yes, we will look at your A-levels or your IB. We will also look at your ISAT. And then to be invited for multiple mini interview, you need to have a strong ISAT. So if you are invited for interview, the actual ranking of each one is worth 1/3. So that's why it's important. You need to be strong in each of the selection criteria to go from an interview to an offer in the actual course. The ISATs, this is really important. Obviously, as I mentioned to you earlier, if you've sat the ISAT twice, we'll look at the highest result. So you may have sat it, for example, I don't know, in May last year for whatever reason, and now you're resitting in May this year because there's 12 months between test dates. If you've got 2 results, we only look at the highest result. It's very rare nowadays that we get 2 test results because ISAT has a rule where you can't sit the test, more than 12 months apart. So we don't often come across students that have got 2 test results. It's usually just the one because of the application timeline. As I said, for the ISAT, you're probably looking at a score of at least 170 as a minimum, 170 as a minimum in the ISAT. And you need at least 165 in the 2 individual sections to be considered for interview selection. Remember, if we have a lot of applicants, and if those applicants are quite high achievers in the ISAT, the score required might be higher for interview selection. So just use the 170 as a minimum, but keep in mind you may need a higher score just depending on how many students we have apply and the quality of those students who are applying for the same intake that you're applying for. Now, ISAT dates are very important because now, if you've done your research, you'll understand that ISAT only has 3 sittings, or 3 cycles, they call it. Cycle 1, that should say cycle 2. Cycle 1, cycle 2, and cycle 3. Now, for Singaporean students, we will usually interview or invite students for interview in July. So if we're inviting students for interview in July, then you can't sit the test in August. That is going to be too late. Because if we're already interviewing in July, we can't wait for you to sit a test in August and then, retrospectively invite you. So my message to you is that if you're interested in medicine at Monash, direct entry medicine, you must be sitting the ISAT in the May cycle this year, because then you really need to apply, May, June for Monash, and we will consider students for interviews in July. So usually in early July, students will be notified. But it's your responsibility. ISAT's not a Monash test. It's a test that's administered by a separate company, which is called ASA. So really, you need to make sure you've got the registration details, understood, and make sure that you're on top of all those details to make sure that you sit the ISAT at the right time. If you are one of those students that we do shortlist for interview, you might be thinking, well, what are they going to ask me in the interview? What do I do? Is the interview in person? Is the interview online? Well, in the last 2 years, it's been obviously pretty much impossible for us to interview in person because the pandemic has restricted travel, and even if we could come to Singapore, there was lockdowns, and you were instructed not to go out in public. So in the past 2 years, we've actually moved the interviews online just via Zoom, and that will continue for the students who apply in 2022 to be considered for 2023. So the interviews, as I said, it's multiple mini interviews. So it's a scenario-based interview. It's not as though I'm asking you, why do you want to be a doctor, or what do you know about medicine? It's not a job interview. It's what we call a scenario-based interview. You're given a scenario or a series of scenarios, and there's no right or wrong answer, but you need to answer that scenario or respond to that scenario as best you can. And we will be judging you on these key areas, things like how you communicate, what your motivation levels are like, how do you critically think, how do you analyze, do you show ethical and empathetic reasoning, teamwork and collaboration, obviously, and advocacy. How strong can you put forward a point of view, your argument, how do you back it up, how do you support your arguments? So the way the multiple mini interviews work is there's 4 different interview stations. And each one, you've got a different scenario that you need to respond to. So they go for about 10 minutes each, 2 minutes of reading, and then 8 minutes. And yeah, you can get any sort of question, and you've just got to talk and communicate. And as I said, we're assessing you based on these criteria. So we need to see that you're strong in all of these areas. So that's the multiple mini interview. As I thought, that's very important because it's worth 1/3. And remember, to get to that interview stage, you need to have a strong ISAT as part of your application. And just to reiterate, the interviews will be online this year. So students are usually notified for interviews about 2 weeks before they happen, and they're usually in late July. So if you're applying for 2023, it's getting close to March now, so you need to start thinking about, doing your application and registering for the ISAT. If you're not doing national service, this is what the sort of the timeline looks like. If you're completing your IB or your A-levels this year, as I said, you apply by June. To be confirmed, we haven't confirmed the official dates yet, but just think it's May, June, you should be applying. ISAT, we talked about that earlier in May, and the interview invitations as well. So if you have an interview in July, you'll usually know by mid-August if you've been successful or not. The offer letters are sent out, so that's good for you guys, because if you've got an offer in August for Monash Medicine, you're in Singapore, you can relax and chill out for another 6 or 7 months, and then you'll be ready to start, in February 2023. And obviously now, the borders are open in Australia, so students have come back, now to study on campus, and that's what we expect of you. If you get an offer, you'll be coming to study at Monash in Clayton, and that's where you'll do your 5 years, and you'll be in the clinical placement environment as well when we place you for placements. If you've got national service, it's a little bit different. I've got a couple of different examples here. Let's look at this one. So what have I put here? So it's So if you're completing A-levels this year, for example, in 2021, and you're a male, you'd probably have to complete 1 year of national service, correct? So you would do that in 2022, because this year you're doing high school, your 1 year of national service, 2022. But the next year, in your second and final year of national service, you apply by 2023. You sit the ISAT in 2023 to be considered for interviews in 2023. And then if you're successful, you get an offer in 2023 for 2024. So everything's delayed by 1 year if you've got national service, depending on when you've completed your national service. So just keep that in mind for the male students that are applying for medicine, obviously. Okay. If you don't get into direct entry medicine, Monash does have a graduate entry medicine program. So it's the same qualification. It's actually it's called a Bachelor of Medical Science and a Doctor of Medicine, which is MD, graduate entry. The difference is with this course is that students must study an undergraduate degree that has significant biomedical science content. So that's quite broad. It could be a Bachelor of Science with, a major in genetics or a major in anatomy or biochemistry, or it could be a Bachelor of Biomedical Science. That's usually the preferred pathway. So we don't accept students from any degree. It must be from a biomedical science related degree. We don't have a GAMSAT requirement for this graduate entry program, not at Monash, because we're selecting you based on your academic record and a multiple mini interview. So students are shortlisted for interview based on their academic record, where you need a GPA of at least 6 out of 7, but you'll probably need a higher GPA because we only have 20 places for graduate entry medicine each year. So this would be an example, as we said, you might do 3 years of biomed, and then you've got 4 years of medicine at Monash. One of those would be preclinical, which is, learning in the classroom. The remaining 3 years, so about 75% of your course will be learned in the hospital system, in a clinical placement environment. And that's just how it compares, obviously, to direct entry medicine. So Monash offers 2 different entries to medicine: direct entry and graduate entry. Direct is coming straight from high school. If you're not successful in getting into direct, you can take the graduate entry pathway as well, or consider that as one of your options through biomed. So that's what it looks like, 20 places. And as I said, we select you based on your undergraduate degree. So there's no GAMSAT requirement at Monash, but if you're applying for graduate entry medicine, you'll probably see GAMSAT at other, to apply for other universities at the same time. Biomedical science at Monash is the preferred pathway. So if you don't get into direct entry medicine, it's always good to have biomedical science in your preference list. This is a 3-year program, and it sets you up nicely. And it's not just a degree that you can use to apply for medicine. Biomedical science is in demand because it underpins a lot of modern medicine. And it enables you to go into a number of different industries. You can go into pharmaceuticals, forensic science, biotech. You can go into research, go into do other postgraduate studies if you want to be a pharmacist, or you want to go into do physiotherapy or embryology. And then obviously, as we said, it can lead to direct entry medicine at Monash, or you can use it to apply to direct entry medicine at other universities. So I might stop there because I've only got a couple of minutes left, 5 minutes. I thought I'd stop and you guys can ask me any questions. I'll just stop sharing my screen. As I said, I really do apologise that we lost a few minutes there, but I think we've fitted most of what I needed to say in. And yeah, I haven't looked at the chat or the question and answer visa because I was presenting, but is there questions that students would like me to answer? I can have a look. I'm interesting. Okay, there's a lot of questions here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer these in 5 minutes. Okay, autonomous. Fraser, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, I think there's quite a bit of questions. So I think we will direct the students to the lounge room where they can speak further to our counselors as well as the uni rep and yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
I mean, we've got 4 minutes. Do you want me to try and answer some of them?
Yeah, maybe we can do 1 or 2, but I believe some of it, like about the national service, you did cover. It was an earlier question.
Just let me go from the top. So
Yeah,
someone here has written, I'm interested in graduate diploma in medical sonography and keen to study with clinical placement in Australia next year for better exposure. May I seek your advice about this, please? Well, we do have a course, but it's not for international. So I don't know who that is. It's an anonymous attendee. I believe it's called the Master of Master of Radiography. Yeah, the graduate diploma is like an early exit. So you'll have to look into that, because I believe you can't do that on a student visa. So you'd have to do it online, and you've usually got to arrange your own placements. Monash doesn't arrange the placements for international students. So we've got another one here. I'm an Australian citizen but studying in Singapore due to my dad's. So HEX is a loan scheme from the government. So yes, if you're an Australian citizen, you can ignore everything I've just said, because it's only for international students, the information I've given you. If you're an Australian citizen, you need to apply through VTAC, and you need to sit the UCAT. You don't sit the ISAT, and you're applying for domestic places, not for international places. So it's a completely different application process. So you'll need to, obviously go through the domestic students process or application process. Okay, I've got a question here from Wu. Hi, I'm from Singapore using my GCA levels to apply. I know if it is possible to replace grade 1 of my content subjects. That's assessed by, we need a minimum of 3 A's at A level. So just to keep it simple, anyone doing A levels, we need a minimum of 3 A's at A level, and one of those must be for chemistry. So that's probably the best way I can answer that. So you need 3 A's. We may be able to combine them, but you would need to apply to admissions to see whether or not there'd be enough time between them. Subkata Amanda, is there a 5-year undergraduate accepted worldwide for practice in medicine? Well, it's an accredited course, so it's accredited by the Australian Medical Council. But like anywhere in the world, wherever you're going, you need to check with the local jurisdiction. So, for example, it's recognised back in Singapore, our degree, so students can go return back to Singapore. Monash medicine is very well renowned. So it's recognised in Malaysia, it's recognised in Australia. But there's so many different countries around the world. So, some of them will ask you to maybe sit an exam. In most cases, we've had students that go back to the US, to Canada to work, so it's not a problem. But definitely you'll have to check. It depends which country you'll be going to, because there may be additional requirements. And just one final question, and we can wrap it up. Hi, can I enter medicine through foundation year? Yes, you can use foundation year, so that's not considered further tertiary study. So Monash has a foundation year, and we can also look at other foundation years, because foundation is deemed equivalent to year 12. So that is equivalent to a high school qualification. So students can apply for direct entry medicine through university foundation. All good?
All right, students. So yeah, thank you so much, Justin, for your time. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah.